My mother-in-law demanded I pay for my sister-in-law's college tuition after my promotion and publicly humiliated me at my party, but this truth came out. A couple of days ago, my husband and I hosted a party at our house to celebrate my promotion at work. I have been working for it for the past 3 years now, and finally, I received it, so it's a pretty big deal. I won't go into the details of my position, but you guys need to know that this promotion comes with a pretty significant raise. Of course, we haven't discussed that with anybody, but when we told our families about it, that was pretty much the first question that my mother-in-law had asked me. My promotion had been finalized about 2 weeks ago, and a couple of days after that, my husband and I had invited our families over for dinner so we could tell them about the good news. Everyone had congratulated me first, but my mother-in-law had decided to go ahead and ask me how much I would get paid now. It was pretty blunt, and my father-in-law told her off about it, but I still answered her question truthfully. Honestly, it was kind of a brag on my part because I know for a fact that my mother-in-law has never liked me or appreciated me. So I just wanted her to know that whether she likes me or not, I'm still doing well for myself. I have to admit, I was kind of gloating about it, but then, she just congratulated me with a straight face and then said nothing. I had assumed that this discussion was closed, but then, a few days back, on the day of my party, she pulled me aside to speak to me in private and told me that after hearing how much I was going to be making now, she had given it some thought, and had decided that it would be fair enough to ask me to cover my sister-in-law's expenses for college. And she was not just talking about my sister-in-law's tuition money, she was talking about the general cost of living as well. Obviously, I declined immediately because my sister-in-law and I are not very close, and even if we were, I know for a fact that she's planning on going to college out of state and it's going to be pretty expensive. So if anybody has to pay for it, I think it should be her parents and not me. After I declined, my mother-in-law started telling me that now that I was making so much money, I owed it to the family to help them out, and said that I was being selfish by saying no. And I told her that I really didn't care if I was coming off as selfish or not. I was not even going to entertain this discussion, and then I left so I could go back to the party. I didn't expect her to come after me or make any public announcements, but once we were back in the living room, she started screaming at me and said that she couldn't believe that she had allowed her son to get married to somebody as self-centered and fake as me. Literally, everybody in the room was shocked, including me, because so far, she had managed to hide the fact that she hated me pretty well. She would just limit herself to weird comments and petty actions like most nightmare mother-in-laws do. But this was the first time she was having a public outburst in my 4 years of being married, and it kind of took everybody by shock. I didn't even know what to say, so she went on yelling at me and said a lot of things about me that I'm sure she had been holding back for a really long time. My husband and I have been together for 6 years and married for 4, and I guess this had been building up inside of her ever since we got together. She just needed an excuse to let it all out somehow. So first, she accused me of being selfish because I was the reason her son had cut down on time with his family, because apparently, since he and I had gotten married and moved away to the suburbs, she hardly ever got to see her son. I don't know why she was blaming me for it. It was a decision that both my husband and I had made, not something that just I had wanted. As a matter of fact, my husband had even told her several times that he was the one who had wanted to move to the suburbs after marriage because that had always been the plan. I don't know why she can't take his word for it and needs to find something to blame me for. Then she accused me of being fake because all the time, I would pretend like I got along well with my in-laws in front of people, and apparently, I like to behave like I was an angel from heaven, whereas, in reality, I could hardly stand my in-laws, especially her, and then she accused me of talking about her behind her back constantly. Just to be clear, I haven't done that either. I'm not even interested in talking about her in general, and anybody who knows me and is close to me can attest to that. Until that point, I hadn't said anything, and neither had my husband. We were just letting her vent it all out, and then we would address everything at once. But then, she said something along the lines of me being a selfish miser. Apparently, since it is her belief that I always make my husband pay for anything, even though I make more money than him. Just like everything else that she had said up until then, even that had not been true, and we were about to give it back to her, but before we could say anything, my father-in-law came to my rescue, and I'm really glad that he did, because we got to know a lot of things that we had no idea about so far. Before we could say anything, my father-in-law asked his wife to shut up and told her that she was embarrassing everybody. She was just making a fool out of herself. She was also ruining my party for everyone else. By then, nobody had any idea why any of this was even happening because she hadn't addressed the issue. So after my father-in-law spoke to her, she screamed at him too, and told him that the only reason she was having to do this first because she had asked me, very kindly, to help pay for my sister-in-law's tuition, and I had outright refused to do so, which apparently just shows my arrogance, and she felt like she had to call me out on it. And then, my father-in-law said that since we were actually talking about my sister-in-law's college tuition, he thought that it would be appropriate to bring up the exact reason why she did not have a college fund anymore. Then, my mother-in-law started fumbling, saying that this was irrelevant, and stuff like that, but my father-in-law went on speaking over her. He was quite angry, and we could hear it, but even then, he first apologized to both of us for all of this and told us that it was absolutely not our responsibility to cover my sister-in-law's college tuition. So it wasn't like I had done anything wrong by refusing to do so since, obviously, it was going to be pretty expensive and it was not my duty to handle that. He said that he did have a college fund saved up for both his children, but unfortunately, he had to give away a significant chunk of that money as a settlement for a lawsuit a couple of years ago. And that was all thanks to my mother-in-law, which is shocking because nobody in the room had any idea about any of this. Obviously, at that point, my mother-in-law started crying as loudly as she could to distract everybody from what my father-in-law was saying, but my father-in-law didn't care. He just went on talking, and that's how we got to know that apparently, about 3 years back, my mother-in-law had tried to ruin my marriage by pushing another woman onto her own son. I know this sounds crazy, but it's true, and I still can't believe that it's something that she actually tried to do. And I remember all of this very clearly because a couple of years ago, my husband had a woman who was flirting with him almost constantly, be it over text, or in person, and even when he had told her that he was married and he had absolutely no interest in her, he could not do anything to make her back down. Initially, we would only make fun of her attempts to flirt with him and get with him because he thought it was harmless, but then, it got to the point where he actually started to think that maybe she was insane. The problem was that he absolutely had to interact with her because back then, my husband used to work in his father's company. He had even been pushed to discuss this employee's behavior with his father, since she was a junior in his department, and he wasn't comfortable working with her. His dad had told him that he would handle it, but before he could do anything, she ended up quitting abruptly, and that was it. After that, she did not try to contact him again, so we forgot about it. It was not until recently that we found out that this was the whole thing that my mother-in-law had orchestrated, and it's really pretty disturbing. And later on, apparently, that woman decided to file a lawsuit against my mother-in-law, and in order to quash that, my father-in-law had to come to a settlement with her, and that's how they lost the college fund for my sister-in-law. I don't want to get the details of whatever happened with that other woman. I will post it later if necessary, but right now, I just want to focus on my mother-in-law. So yes, after that huge revelation, everyone was shocked and my mother-in-law froze for a couple of seconds and then made a run for out of the door. My father-in-law did not even bother going after her. He just stood with us and he told us that he was really sorry about everything, that he should have told us about it earlier, but he didn't know how to do this without breaking everyone's hearts. Apparently, he had made my mother-in-law promise that she would never ever do anything like this again and had even started therapy for her because obviously, she had some serious issues. At that point, neither my husband, nor I knew what to say, so we just told him that we needed some time to process this, and then he left after apologizing to us some more. Whatever we had learned, it was extremely disturbing that we could not continue with any more, so people started leaving and the only people who stayed back were my parents. My sister-in-law hadn't bothered to attend the party anyway, so at least she was spared. After the party ended, my husband, my parents, and I all sat together and discussed what we had learned. Eventually, we came to the conclusion that whatever my mother-in-law had done, whether it was in the past or not, it was disgusting and we did not want to have any contact with her anymore. I didn't even have to talk my husband into it. He readily agreed and said that he himself was so disgusted that he couldn't find it in himself to speak to his mother the same way again. And there was also the fact that regardless of how good my father-in-law had been to us, he had still helped my mother-in-law cover all of this up. We needed some time and space to process everything because it was a lot to find out in just one evening. So we decided, we would cut ties with his family for now. It has been a few days since then, and this morning, my father-in-law showed up at my house and he said that he was going to have to ask us to speak to my mother-in-law. My husband and I obviously said that that was not going to happen, but he said that she was ready to apologize to me and apparently, she has been miserable ever since the day of the party. He told us that they got into a really big fight after they got back home, and it had gotten to the point where he was almost threatening to leave her, and that's when she came to her senses and she said that she wanted to apologize to me. There was also the fact that nobody else from the family wanted anything to do with her anymore either. A couple of people from my husband's family were also present at the party, and I'm guessing that they had told everybody else about it. So my mother-in-law had been blocked by several people online, and even a couple of her close relatives had told her that they did not want to associate with her for a while because after what they had just found out, they actually felt disgusted by her. But I did not feel moved by that in the slightest because whatever I had found out, it had affected me greatly, and I did not want to hear her apology. Not now, at least. She could save it for later, for when I actually felt like I could forgive her. My husband felt the same way, so he told his father that for now, we did not want to have any contact with them, and they just had to accept it. But my father-in-law refused to leave and said that he had promised his wife that he was going to get us to speak to her, and he knew that she had done It had been incredibly messed up, but now that she was ready to apologize for it, it was necessary for us to give her a chance. But I still declined, and then he started telling me that if I refused, I'd not be any different from my mother-in-law, because even all the problems that she had caused for me all along, it had come from a place of refusing to give people a chance. And I knew that he was trying to manipulate me, but now that I think about it, he might have a point? I'm not sure about what to feel, so I'm here for some unbiased opinions. So what do you guys think about this? Am I the a-hole for if you think we even give my mother-in-law a chance to apologize to me? Edit. So a lot of people have asked me about the woman who was paid by my mother-in-law to try and distract my husband from his marriage. I did not go into the details in my original post because I was in a bit of a hurry, but now that I have some time, I can tell you guys that this employee who used to work under my husband was pretty much coerced into it by my mother-in-law. I waited until now to add this update because I myself was not fully aware of all the details, but then, my husband spoke to their family lawyer, who was obviously involved in everything, and that's how he got the whole story. So apparently, my mother-in-law had met this woman at a work party hosted by her husband, and she had caught her staring at my husband quite frequently. Nobody else had seen that because obviously, nobody was looking at her, but my mother-in-law cornered her and confronted her about what she was doing. Even though she kept denying it, my mother-in-law had figured out that probably fancied my husband. And that's not a crime, people are allowed to feel what they want to, but my mother-in-law decided to use it against her. She reached out to her later on getting her contact info somehow and told her that she needed to flirt with my husband and said that she would get paid for it. Apparently, the woman was not comfortable with it, so she declined it, but then, my mother-in-law started telling her that she would get her fired if she did not abide by what she said, and after a lot of convincing, that woman finally decided to agree. I don't know why she didn't take this up with the authorities, I guess she was scared or whatever. Anyway, for some time, she obeyed my mother-in-law and relentlessly pursued my husband, even though he was a married man. And of course, at first, we just laughed it off because we thought it was a harmless crush, but then, it turned into something psychotic and obsessive. My guess is that she has started to realize that she was turning into something nasty because of my mother-in-law as well, and that's why she decided to quit and block my mother-in-law. A couple of weeks after that, my mother-in-law was served with a lawsuit, and that's how my father-in-law found out about what she had been up to. They tried to finish this off in mediation itself because they did not want this to go to court. Basically, my father-in-law had to pay that employee a huge amount of hush money and make her sign an NDA so this could all be covered up. We never found out about it, but yeah, it was pretty disturbing. Given the fact that my father-in-law knew about it all along, but never told us, we don't feel like speaking to him right now either. Update 1. Hey, thanks for all the comments, you guys. My husband and I have decided that we don't owe his mother anything. We don't have to hear her out if we don't want to, and that's what we're gonna do. I know she wants to apologize and maybe I should give her a chance, but at this point, after everything that I have found out and the tantrum that she threw at my party to ruin it, I don't even want to see her. My father-in-law doesn't really have a point because the reason she never wanted to give me a chance was because she just hated me, and the reason I don't want to give her a chance is because she has given me several reasons to hate her now. It's as simple as that, and if he doesn't get it, I guess we know which side he's actually on. It has been a week since the day of the party, and a lot of my husband's family members have reached out to us to tell us that it must be difficult getting to know something like this about somebody we considered close, but they are by our side. And honestly, it means a lot to us because we know that they also used to be pretty close to his mother, since I was pretty much the only person she was unpleasant to, but got along with everyone else. Anyway, they are choosing to do the right thing, and I don't think that can ever be an easy thing to do. For example, I'm pretty sure that it can never be easy for my husband's family because just like his dad is trying to use the guilt trip tactic to get us to hear his mother's apology, his sister has decided to go the other way and throw tantrums over this. I had mentioned earlier that we don't get along much anyway, which was part of the reason why I declined to help her out with the college fund. Besides, if she wanted my help, she would have to approach me herself. I was not gonna dance to my mother-in-law's tunes, that was obvious. Anyway, my sister-in-law contacted my husband after my father-in-law visited and started yelling at him for being disrespectful towards his parents, and told him that he needed to grow a spine and stand up to me because I couldn't just insult my in-laws like this and get away with it. She also believes that my mother-in-law didn't ask for anything unfair by demanding that I fund her college education because after all, we are family now. As a part of the family, it is my duty to look out for everyone, and if I can't do that, maybe I don't deserve to be part of their family. So she doesn't see anything wrong with whatever my mother-in-law did, and she doesn't even think that her mother needs to apologize to me. My husband obviously got very upset with her, and he told her that she had no reason to try and get involved in this, but since she had chosen to get on his nerves, he was going to block her as well now. So he did, he just hung up on her and blocked her everywhere, but she did not let it go. She decided to start sending him messages through her friends' accounts, and it's really sad because this just means that she told all of her friends about this family drama, even though there was no need for her to do something like that. We have blocked a bunch of her friends as well, so they can't reach out to us anymore, but it's still pretty annoying because she's making new accounts, new email addresses, and stuff like that. I don't know why she is being so stubborn, why it is so necessary for her to show us that she is on her parents' side. Because I don't think she realizes that she doesn't have a college fund right now, so no matter how much she sucks up to them, it's not gonna change the facts. If I were in her place, I would actually be apologizing to me right now and trying to get on our good side so that I would at least have a chance of getting some financial help for when I go to college. Because otherwise, my only alternative would be taking out a student loan, and even for that, I would have to make sure that I am able to pay back that money by myself at some point. I guess you guys can see why it is such a stupid move for her to be coming after us right now, but well, it's clear that she's not very clever, just like the rest of her family. With the exception of my husband, of course, because he has been so supportive of me throughout this whole thing. I know it hurts him to know that his family is acting like this, and it's pretty much unforgivable, but he hasn't let it show for 1 second, just so that I don't feel guilty about anything that I'm doing. I wish I could do something to fix things for them, I really do, because he doesn't deserve this. He deserves a better family, he deserves better people in his life who are not out here to ruin things for him. So far, the only reason both of us had put up with his mother and her terrible behavior was because he wanted to keep in touch with his dad and his sister. She also had a bit of an attitude problem, but she's just a teenager, so we didn't think it was personal. As for my father-in-law, we always got along well with him. So this feels like a huge betrayal, and at least I have my family by my side to help me deal with it, and so does he, in the form of his extended family, but I can't even imagine what I would be going through if my own parents put me through something like this. He has been incredibly strong for me and I'm really proud of him. I know I married the right guy. Update 2. Hey, so it has been 3 weeks since my father-in-law visited us, telling us that my mother-in-law wanted to apologize to us and we were not ready to hear her out back then. We just wanted some space and time away from them, so we have maintained no contact with them since then. My father-in-law had been respectful of it later on and had not tried to contact us either after his visit. A couple of days ago, though, he reached out to us once again, and he told us that now that some weeks had passed, he thought that it was finally time that we should give my mother-in-law a chance to apologize. We were not really interested because my husband and I knew for a fact that we were not going to forgive her, but we still said that she could come over and say whatever it was that she had to say because we just wanted to get this over with. And we knew that if we did not agree this time either, they would make a huge deal out of it. Anyway, the two of them came over, and my mother-in-law instantly started apologizing to both of us and crying, saying that she did not mean any of what she had done. She said that, apparently, she had been finding it very difficult to accept the fact that her son had married somebody that she did not approve of. Apparently, it had made her feel like she was not worth much to him, and that's why she had been so against me right from the first day. But she now has realized that whatever she had done was incredibly wrong and she was ready to do whatever it took to make it up to us, but we just told her that right now, the only thing that we wanted from her was some space. We had heard about her apology and we appreciated the fact that she had come to her senses, but apart from that, we wanted nothing to do with her right now. But I guess she was just ready to do whatever it took, apart from that one thing, apart from giving us space to heal and process everything. She and her husband started telling us that as parents, they do screw up sometimes and they can understand that we are really hurt by their actions, but we need to give them a chance to improve. They told us that nobody is born perfect, stuff like that, which meant they were trying to get defensive. So I very politely reminded them that what they had done was not something petty and insignificant. In case it had been, we would have forgiven them quite easily, but the level 2 in which they had taken things, it was insane and it was going to take a lot of time for us to forgive that. Maybe we wouldn't even ever be able to forgive that, so they just need to accept it and move on. At that point, my mother-in-law stopped crying and she told me that she was ready to accept that what she had done was really wrong and she was very apologetic for it, but it had already been done. It was in the past and I couldn't ruin our family's relationship because of that. My father-in-law agreed, so I just told both of them to leave because clearly, we are not on the same page at all. I did not want to waste more of my time with him, so I asked them to leave and then, my father-in-law started looking at my husband, asking him to say something to me because he thought that I was being very disrespectful towards them, even though they were being apologetic. But my husband didn't even say anything, he just said that it was my house too and I was someone who had been insulted the most, so he was not going to intervene. If I wanted them to leave, they would have to leave. After that, they argued a bit with my husband because they thought that he was being too laid back about all of this and allowing the family to get broken up, but he didn't seem to care and then, They left after cursing him out. I don't regret inviting them over to my house because at least we got all of this negativity out of the way, and now, I'm hoping that they will not bother us. We are done with them, and today they even showed us that their apology was definitely not genuine at all. If they had been truly sorry about everything, they would have acted that way too, and I did not see that with them. Anyway, it doesn't matter anymore. Update 3. Hi, so it has been 7 months since I last interacted with my in-laws, and thankfully, after I told them to leave my house, they did not reach out to me again. They do keep trying to get in touch with my husband quite often though, but he has made it very clear to them that as long as I'm not speaking to them, he's not interested in speaking to them either. I feel kinda bad for him because I really don't want him to feel alone, so I've told him that if he wants to, he can keep in touch with his parents, but he is really the best, and he's told me that he's not gonna speak to anybody who has hurt me, and he's not gonna be forgiving them unless I do. It's pretty adorable and I appreciate him for it. Anyway, the reason I'm here is because I'm pregnant now. I have just entered my second trimester, and we made the announcement on social media yesterday. We are also having a party in a couple of weeks to celebrate this, and we are not inviting his family. I just wanted to share that. I thought it was pretty strange that they kept trying to get in touch with him, but now that I'm pregnant, they haven't sent a single message to him since. Not even to congratulate him, and I think that's pretty weird. I guess they just don't want a relationship with their grandson, and that's completely fine with both of us. Even if they come crawling back to us, we are not going to allow them to get involved in our lives again, and that's final. Apart from that, we are really excited to become parents. I know it's going to be wonderful, and I truly cannot wait. Thank you, everyone, for keeping up with us.